Spektrum Metrics has expanded our industry-leading web spectrum viewer to provide quick insights into spectrum allocations, carrier spectrum ownership, and the network capabilities for carriers in different countries. Today, we're going to look at some of the national reports, starting with the national spectrum depth, which allows us to see allocations across the entire country that each carrier controls. We're going to start with Mexico. And we're going to go to the analysis menu here and choose spectrum depth. First thing I'm going to do is to highlight up here in the filters that our analysis, we have two different analysis types, or we have four different analysis types. We're going to focus today on frequency band and band classification. Those are the ones that are available for the national view of spectrum. And then we also have the largest carriers specified as carriers 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's an additional screen of 4 other carriers. I'm going to go ahead and close this so you can see the tabular output that gives us the total amount of spectrum, low band spectrum, basically predominantly coverage spectrum, lower midband spectrum, which is 4G spectrum, and then larger channel sizes in the upper midband spectrum. And you see the details of the totals for all of those. So down here in the chart, we can see graphically that IFT actually is the quote-unquote carrier, the regulator that controls the most spectrum. They have 98 megahertz of spectrum available that is in their hands and available for auction in low band, 170 and 240. To look at those same spectrum values, but to get the details under which specific frequency bands those are in, we now can see in the table that we have a total. We have 600, 700 in cellular, which would be low band. You have basically AWS 4, each of the other AWS. AWS-S is Mexican-only nomenclature. WCS, PCS, BRS, and fixed wireless broadband. And so now going down to the 70 megahertz from 600 meg is all in IFT's hands, as well as a large block of the fixed wireless broadband spectrum. So let's go ahead and pivot and look at these same reports in the United States. So upon opening it up here in the United States, you can see it opens up in our band classification view. And we can see with the T-Mobile still leads in the overall national average for spectrum, well over 300, where AT&T and Verizon are in that order, AT&T second and Verizon third. By changing that to frequency band, again, get a table, but we also we can look at what T-Mobile's national average 600 megahertz spectrum is 33, and where AT&T has just purchased Dish's spectrum, they now, or they will, because we're looking at what they're going to hold in the future when those transactions are finalized, they'll have 15 megahertz on a national basis. Let's go ahead and look at Canada next. So for Canada, we're looking at the band classification. So low band, Rogers is sitting here with the most. ISD is the Canada regulator, so they are holding 101 megahertz of upper midband spectrum. Let's go ahead and go up and change that to frequency band. And what we see with that is what ISD, the regulatory body, controls is 90 megahertz of the CBW, that's some C-band spectrum that they've dedicated for industry kind of private network use. So that's still reflected in their control. The last country that we're going to take a look at is Germany. So for Germany, BNA is the German regulator, and Telefonica, T-Mobile, Vodafone, and Drill. You can see that one is definitely a under spectrum resource carrier, and the rest are fairly competitive on a national basis for spectrum by band classification. And then as we look at frequency band, you can see that they're fairly equivalent, although Telefonica doesn't have any of the 1500 megahertz of spectrum, and it doesn't appear that the rest of the spectrum is fairly consistent. So just to rate, the Wide Spectrum Viewer provides you with the ability to look at spectrum depth information, not only on a national basis for every carrier in every country. There are also, you can choose smaller market sizes all the way down to counties, municipals, districts, and Tier 4 service areas. Thank you very much for watching this video.